Yo, welcome to my channel, Ward Draws a Lot. Obviously I'm Ward, otherwise I wouldn't have named it Ward Draws a Lot. Today I'm starting the 500 drawing prompt series. I got this idea from a famous art YouTuber named Casey Golden, who was doing the series herself. I thought it was really good to spark creativity. The only difference is mine is going to be the OC edition, meaning that all the prompts are going to pertain to making a character in some way, or using the ideas for the character, like clothing or certain items, or just the character themselves. Basically making characters out of everything to make it a little harder for myself. I'm hoping this series will give me an understanding on how to be more creative with my OCs, because I don't really expand far out from what I like. And without further ado, I'm going to open up the page, and we're going to see our first prompt, which is going to be Wizard Staff and Waterfall. So I sat down for I'm not gonna lie, a good hour thinking, what am I even gonna do with this? At one point I just gave up with thinking about what to do and just started doing. So I did the basics of what I feel was necessary, which is just draw a waterfall, or like a little sketch of it, and then draw a wizard staff. And I kind of played around with the idea of maybe making water float around a wizard staff and like all this extra stuff, and I was like, man, that sucks. So I was like, dude, what if I have somebody making a waterfall? Better yet, let's make him a wizard. And where am I gonna put the wizard staff? I was like, dude, just do them as earrings. So the idea is that this wizard is using his wizard staff earrings to control water. So after that big brain idea, I was like, let's move on to the cardstock paper, because I'm super excited to draw this now. So what you're seeing right now is me sketching it out for the second time, because the first time it was like way too big, and I was like, no, we're not doing this. We're gonna try and fit him within the span of this paper, whether it kills me or not. This time I wanted to try and do something different with the pose, specifically the hands. I wanted to give them more character, like he is controlling water with them. And dude, it was so hard. I drew these hands like 150 times. And I really wanted to try and get them to look as nice as possible. The hand on top, I totally did that, but I didn't take into account how massive this character's head is. And I didn't even realize that either until I brought the paper up to my face and I was like, wait, this head is super big. And even after I said that, I still didn't fix it, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it, we're just gonna do it this way then. It's a shame too, because I felt like the body was actually pretty proportionate this time, and it's super hard for me to do proportionate bodies, especially because I do bodies super muscular most of the time, and I'm trying to stray away from that as much as possible, because I can't just draw beefy men the rest of my life. Although he is still beefy, but just not huge. I'd like to say the part that I struggled on the most was making the hand that was going under the waterfall, because I was trying to make it look like he's controlling them in between this span of maybe a foot and a half within his hands. And I looked up so many references, and I asked my brother to pose his hand, and then I looked at my hand, and I was like, if I'm looking at it from an aerial point of view, how is this going to be? And at one point I was just getting super frustrated, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna draw this to the best of my capabilities right now, and then we're gonna go back in later and study them a different time, because right now making this as perfect as possible isn't going to do anything but make me mad, so I might as well just try and have fun with it from there. After my wonderful struggling for such a long time, I was like, fuck it, let's move on to the face. And that's when I did the part that I was really excited for, which were his wizard staff earrings. I kind of wish I looked up a reference for a wizard staff and a wizard hat, because I felt like they were both pretty generic, especially because when I'm doing things from my imagination, it kind of defaults back to what the image of something is, which is something we all do. If I say picture an apple, that's your default image of maybe you picked a red apple or a green apple, and you don't really expand past that. Unless I say picture a bunch of apples, maybe now you pictured a bunch of different colored apples. So next time I'm going to try and look up a reference, because we always have that one stock image of something in our mind, and I want to try and work past that, so this way I can expand my horizons on what to draw. I did think of one cute idea for the hat, and I don't know if it has been done before, because everything is just a combination of what we've seen in life, and etc, whatever. So when I was drawing the hat, I was like, well, what if I put a star at the little tip of the hat that's pointing downward? I felt like that would kind of give it a little bit more personality, and it would also match the hat because it has little stars on it itself, or actually 2 big stars. I also wanted to try and incorporate the wizard cloak somewhere in the piece, but I didn't want him wearing it because I felt like that would just cover him up in the entire cloak, and to me personally that would look boring. So I wrapped it around his waist instead, and I thought that was a cute idea. Finally, after being happy enough with the sketch, I take my kneader and I roll it across the paper to like lighten up the graphite, and then I could line over it and it would look a little less messy. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of fucked up the liner, and I fucked it up to the point where I was like, I don't want to draw right now, so I was like, let's restart. And here we are with finished liner, and cue the markers falling. So, I did the same mistake I did last time, which was start with the hair first, which you're not supposed to do, especially if the hair is darker. I was going to start with the skin first, but my brain was like, let's just take the brown markers and start the hair. And me being dumb, I was like, yeah, brain, good idea. After that, I was like, okay, let's leave that part of the hair to dry, so when I do color in the skin, they don't mix in as much. And I foolishly helped so, because it's alcohol-based ink, and it's going to bleed into each other, especially if it's lighter and darker colors. So next time I just have to keep a mental note to start with the lighter colors, then do the darker colors in other areas, because you could cover up the dark spots. No, you could cover up the light spots with dark spots, but you can't do the opposite because it's marker. For his outfit, I did like a half and half, which is going to be this side. I said this side like you guys are looking at me. The left side of his outfit is a straight up black color, which I'll go in later and define with like white gel pen to try and give it some definition. And then the right side, I decided to give him like a blue velvet kind of look, because I personally really like the way I portray velvet onto paper, especially this paper, because it leaves kind of like a grainy source after, because it's not very expensive paper. It kind of keeps the way the marker sits strangely on the paper, but I like the way that it makes it look. It looks like shiny, beautiful, soft velvet fabric, and I get so happy using blues every time, because I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I want. So I brought that idea all the way down from the top of his bodysuit, I'm gonna call it, down to the leg to keep it consistent for that side. I tried to keep the color palette for him very wizardy, quote unquote, like the blues, the purples, the yellows. After finishing that side of the body, I took my purples and I started to color the cloak wrapped around his waist, which I felt like was a good idea. It kept him pretty like modern wizard and not like old-fashioned wizard. My headcanon is he's a little bit more rebellious, which is why he cut up like half of his outfit a certain way, and so it gives him some type of edge. And I felt like he used his own personal magic to make his one wizard staff into 2 wizard staff earrings, because he didn't think it was a good idea to carry around this long giant staff and it would look like really dumb all the time for him to carry, and it would look really heavy. So he was like, you know what, I'm gonna use my own magic and transform these into earrings, and that would be like way easier on my life. I wanted to match the purple cloak with his hat, because that would kind of incorporate more purple into the piece, and I just like the color purple, to be completely honest with you, so I wanted to try and use it as much as possible. It would also help tie together this like midnight kind of color aesthetic vibe thing going on. Anyway, I took the same technique that I used to shade the purple cloak, which was just using deeper, darker purples in certain areas to give it the shadow effect, and I used it onto the hat, but I didn't do the entire front face of the hat a super dark color, because I wanted it to look like light was shining onto it a certain way, so this way we can at least have the illusion like I did some lighting effect, when really I have no idea on how to actually do so. At some points I do when it comes to like outfits and stuff, but I need more practice on that. I need more practice on a lot of things. From coloring the hat, I moved on to coloring the stars, but my phone was like, fuck you, and it didn't have enough storage, so it actually stopped recording as soon as I started coloring the stars in, and I was like, you know what, okay, we'll just continue on with this footage anyway, because I can't reverse time. Like, I wish I could, trust me, there are a lot of times I wish I could, but I couldn't. So from there, I moved on to coloring the arms and the face along with the neck, and as I'm coloring, I'm like, man, I really wish that I would have went back and fixed the size of either the head or the hands, because I was like, man, this is such a good drawing, but I feel like the proportions are just like fucking with me so bad at this point. But I gotta suck it up and continue because I'm already way too far into the drawing and I'll be damned before I restart it again. After moving on from the arms, I moved on to the face and neck, and it was an internal struggle not to give him eye makeup because I like giving a certain type of red shade of eye makeup, and I do it with every single character that I draw, or at least almost all of them. And like a lot of the time if I don't do it, it's because I decide that it doesn't suit the character, and I felt like for him it just wouldn't suit him. He looks extremely like chill in that he wouldn't even have the time or care enough to do his makeup, especially if it's eye makeup, because that's a long process right there. So instead, I give his eyes along with the rest of his face some basic shading, and I do use a pink tone to try and give his face some life and not keep it so flat, so at least there was that. His eye color, I was kind of back and forth on, because there were already so many colors in the piece, I didn't want to introduce a brand new color, so I went with a blue that was lighter than the blue that he was wearing in his outfit, and it would also go along with the waterfall that he's making between his hands, so I felt like it was going to be a bit more cohesive. Finally, after doing everything, now I can get to the second piece of the prompt, which is the waterfall part, and I used various arrays of my lightest blue all the way up to a darker blue, not necessarily the darkest blue, because water isn't going to be the super dark blue color, unless you're in like the ocean or whatever, but if it's in his hand, it would actually be clear, but honestly, I didn't know how to portray that, so I was like, fuck it, blue water it is. So after I was done shading down the water, I was like, okay, we need some kind of thing to bring it together, so I brought in my white gel pen, and I decided to give the water some shiny bits, or make it look like it's glistening at least in the light. And I felt like that helped bring the entire piece together, was just using the white gel pen in general, so not only could I give the water some glistening parts, but I could help define his body that has the black material side on. So finally, we've come to finish the piece, and although it was an extremely long journey on my end, it was like a 10-minute journey on yours, but I had fun with it, so here I am signing it, and I'm done. I think it came out pretty great, and this drawing prompt idea was awesome. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and I love you. Remember that.